So hello, everybody. Sorry for the late minutes to start our session about the playbook of the alignment that we will present today. So before leaving the floor to Charlie and Annelise, who will get into more details in presenting the platform, I just wanted to introduce 2050 for why we're doing all this and why we believe it's important. The first thing we did when we started 2050 is to kind of design our mission and to say what we want to do is actually to craft a fertile future. Investing is crafting. And so we're starting with finance in order to put money at the service of building this fertile future, meaning a future that is both productive, inclusive, and also evolutive. The way we do that is to say, well, to create that fertile future, we need to solve the key challenges of our time. So these, we listed 5 of them, which are basically where we will invest. So it's implementing our investment strategy. First one of those is how are we going to make sure that everybody can eat enough, but eat healthfully. Second one is how can we have everybody take care of their body and mind on a daily basis, basically making sure we're living in an environment where we can really take care of ourselves in a holistic manner. Third one is how can we build and make our education and cultural model evolve so that everybody can contribute to that fertile future. Fourth is how can we live, explore, but also exploit our planet in a sustainable manner. And that means we're going to look at obviously everything around carbon, but also energy, transformation of habitat, transportation, and industrial production methodologies. And the last one is how can we put trust back at the heart of our society with media industry that function, that make also democracy function as well, but also how can we have an insurance model that is covering us for the new risk, and how can we have a finance industry that is also allowing everybody to think long-term and be able to implement all their initiatives. So this is how we framed our investment strategy, but what we believe in and what we saw is that it's not only about solving this problem at a particular moment in time, it's about solving them in the long run. And to do that, you need to invest in companies that are aligning their own economical interests with those of society and those of the planet. So we've built this whole framework about what an aligned company is. And this whole alignment playbook is really about expressing how you can build that alignment path around the 5 key alignment indicators that we've built internally. The other thing which we have brought on is that it's too difficult to align by yourself. We're in a system and a market which is actually pushing towards misalignment. And so to be able to do that path and that movement towards alignment, we believe you need to be part of an ecosystem that is in the same dynamic. And so this is why when we look at solving all these issues, for example, around agriculture or education or mobility, well, we tend to look at the whole value chain, really understanding the ecosystem and seeing where all the different nodes are that are preventing this market to switch. And what we do is that 10% of the money that we have in the fund, we allocate to these open strategic resources that can make some of the nodes unlock. Some will be unlocked by businesses because they're ripe for disruption, there is a certain market maturity, but some of them you cannot do with companies, and this is why we have this 10% of the money dedicated to research, knowledge, advocacy, open resource like the Alignment Playbook, which is part of that, and with Charlie we'll talk a little bit more about this open resource strategy. And the last thing I wanted to tell you before leaving the floor to Charlie and Annelise is the first thing we did is to experiment all these alignment methodology to ourselves. And so this is why we've had this kind of very different investment firm, both in its structure and in its product. So the structure itself, the management company is held by a perpetual purpose trust. So this is a key thing in alignment, it's governance. And so this is why we've built this trust, that perpetual purpose trust that Annelise will be talking a little bit more about, and that is governed by our ecosystem. The other thing is the product, where we've built this open and long-term fund, so in an evergreen structure, and which is allowing to give a lot of freedom to entrepreneurs and founders who can basically adapt their strategy towards what they believe is the best for the company without having very heavy constraints coming from the investor base. And so we're building liquidity at the fund level, which is also allowing a lot of freedom for LPs, so for investors in the fund, to be able to get liquidity as well. We believe this is building a fertile performance, and we also believe that this was only feasible, and this will be only executable with a team that is coming from all these different worlds, and because we want to bridge the best of the different words that are needed to make this model work, which are obviously investment, but also alignment and impact, research, digging into ecosystems. We have this kind of research methodology, ecosystems and commons, which Charlie was talking about, and startups with Olivier on board as well, and communication with Maya, which you don't see, but which is moderating the panel. So do not hesitate to ask questions, and she will send them over to Annelise and Charlie and Aude, who's building this whole trust and compliance part within the company. So there you are, leaving the floor to Charlie and Annelise, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks. Hi. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties and the late minutes. So my name is Charlie. I work also at 2050 as an investor with a special focus on ecosystems and open source. So basically, as Mary pointed out, 2050 doesn't only invest in companies, and 10% of the whole fund, as well as 50% of our own carried interest, the performance bonus, is dedicated to developing open and strategic resources, often, but not limited to, not-for-profit initiatives. That's what we call the commons. Basically, this means that if you invest $100 in 2050, $10 of those hundreds will go straight to the commons. And basically, you should not expect any direct financial return on those $10. And direct is the key word here, and you'll get why in a minute. So so why do we do that? We want the companies we invest in, the companies we support, to thrive in this new economy. And to do so, we believe that we need to give aligned companies, our portfolio companies, sustainable advantages. Like Mary told you, you all know that the right path is often the most challenging. And the more you grow, the more financial pressure you might get, the more pressure you get from competition, from your stakeholders, and the more misaligned from your original mission you can be. So you need allies. You need a powerful ecosystem around you, from customers to suppliers, even to competitors. And we are trying to set the conditions for such ecosystems to emerge around our portfolio companies. This point is actually a big learning from the tech success. Let me take an example. Well, small disclaimer here. I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan, but some of the things he did, I do find quite inspirational. In 2014, he decided to open source all of Tesla's patents. A lot of people called him crazy at the time, and it was quite a bold move, considering that in the context of a raging patent war amongst tech companies, with the big tech basically firmly gripping onto their intellectual property. Yet, he had pretty rational reasons to do so. Basically, he realized that Tesla's true competitors were not the other electric cars companies, but rather the enormous gasoline cars industry. And in order to shift the market share and to boost innovation in this sector, he needed to give it fuel. And by opening up Tesla's IP. And doing so, it actually took a de facto technological leadership in this industry. So you might understand why I did emphasize on direct financial return, because we believe these open resources can indirectly boost our portfolio companies. So what kind of open resources are we talking about? First, we do finance advocacy and lobbying in order for legislation and regulation to be more friendly to fertile aligned companies, which is kind of a fertile legal soil for these actors. The first initiative we did finance is called Interréagir, which is basically a dream team of top lawyers and top law professors engaged in defending the public good through litigation. To give you an example of the actions, recently they've been assisting the Bird Protection League to sue the agrochemical industry over its impact on biodiversity. The second kind of open resources is knowledge and research. For instance, last year we financed and co-conceived a climate course, which is currently being taught to every first-year students at Université Paris-Dauphine, which is a first, at least in France. And we did place this course under a Creative Commons license, meaning that any person, teachers, for example, can freely reproduce the course without asking for permission. The third kind of open resources are common infrastructures, and especially digital infrastructures like open data, open software, or open hardware. And this is a good transition to publicly launch, we're very happy and very proud to publicly launch our collaborative alignment playbook, which you can find at the current address, at this address, so www.alignment-playbook.com, and .com, not .do. There might have been a mistake in the first slide. So let's take a look. So basically, it's a platform, a collaborative platform aiming at two things. So the first, we believed that we need to open up the VC black box and give access to our methodology in selecting and supporting aligned companies with our 5 in-house key alignment indicators that Annelise will present to you in details. And second, we believe that alignment has to be a collaborative effort. And we wanted to create an open database for useful resources on these topics. So here you'll find knowledge, templates, tools, or stories, success stories, but also failure stories, in order to navigate in your journey towards alignment. So this platform is collaborative from the start, meaning that anyone can upload any relevant resources. We wanted to create a community around alignment. You can think of it of the Wikipedia for alignment. Well, at least that's what we hope it can become. And 2050 will keep control of the editorial aspects of the platform at first, but our midterm ambition is to make this platform an actual common and handle its governance to the community as soon as possible. So after this session, you'll be explored to explore this platform and its first contents. And we hope that founders and other VCs can find it useful and use it in their day-to-day operation and strategy. It's still beta. Some features are not implemented yet, and there might be bugs. We've been working on this idea for quite some time now, but the development only started 2 weeks ago. And this is the occasion for me to thank 2 wonderful people who helped us on this project, Julien Cipra and Jean Endelou. But if you come across any bugs, please, any problems, please let us know. And or if you have any feedbacks, please let us know. So that's it. That's the alignment playbook. And now I leave the stage to Annelise, who will share some insights on our in-house methodology.
Thank you, Charlie. I hope you enjoy the launching of the platform. So I will explain you what is alignment for now, because I would like to start with a definition, because when you are going to the alignment playbook, the big question is, what is alignment? What do we mean when we speak about alignment and aligned companies? And at 2050, we think that aligned companies are those which align their business, economic interest with the best interest of the society and the planet. So, of course, it's a very broad statement. And we decided to articulate this ambition around alignment with 5 specific categories that gather our key alignment indicators. And before going into details in these 5 alignment categories, I would like to explain you that with the launching of the Alignment Playbook, we try at 2050 as investors to encourage companies to look beyond traditional KPIs and to add key alignment indicators in the monitoring of their business achievements, successes, and reportings. So we focus on the alignment of business with impact as a strong continuum. And when we invest in companies, we define an action plan related to these key alignment indicators with the founder and the team. And we try to adapt this strategy regarding alignment with their specificities and their business activities. And because what I would like to say is that the platform and the framework we publish give you the ingredients, but each company has to create its own recipes with these ingredients. And to explain you the story behind the design of this framework, I used to work in a consulting company dedicated to sustainable development and impact assessment. And when I met Marie Eklund, the founder of 2050, coming from the VC industry, we decided to articulate the best practices we each observe in our past professional experience. So as an impact advisor for me and as a board member of many successful international startups for Marie. So with the alignment framework designed by 2050, we try to take the best from the impact industry and from the VC industry. So now let's take a look at the 5 alignment categories that you can find on the platform. So as you can see on the slide, we first focus on founder and team engagement, and then we look at mission log and governance mechanism. We also look at the robustness of the ecosystem around the company, and we tackle topics related to the planet footprint and diversity and inclusion. And because we only have 1 hour together, I propose to do a quick presentation of all categories, but to go into details only with 3 of them. And I choose mission log, ecosystem robustness, and diversity and inclusion. And I will try to explain you why these topics matter from an investor perspective, and what are the key questions and indicators used by 2050 in order to select companies and help them in the long term regarding their alignment strategy. So of course, it will be a summary, and you can find the complete framework on the platform, and it's open to any useful feedback. And I will give you example of the key resources that you can find in the Alignment Playbook to help you. And as at 2050, we try to be as aligned as possible as an investing company. I will give you example of concrete actions that we put in place at 2050. And feel free to ask questions. I will try to take questions after each category to be the most interactive as possible, but the format is not easy to be very interactive, but I will try to do my best. So regarding the first alignment dimension related to funders and teams engagement, what matters for a mission-driven investor like 2050 is to understand how funders and their teams are aligned with the corporate mission, but also how does it interact with their personal drivers, and how does it impact management practices. So that's why in the framework, we use 3 indicators. One is related to mission embodiment, as a second to align decision-making, and then we finish with looking at empowerment practices and management style. And as I say, I will not go into detail for this category, but I would like to give you an overview of the key resources that you can find on the platform on this topic. So for example, you can find a study done by a very successful French startup, Swile, on engagement drivers of employees during the COVID crisis and how to empower your team on the long term. You have also a template designed by the consulting company Profile on how to define your mission statement. And you have a very useful tool designed by the French organization, the Guardian Project, on how to define your values, your corporate values, and implement them in the day-to-day life of the company and the day-to-day management practices. And you have case studies on BlaBlaCar, for example, and it's very useful. So now let's jump to the second category and go into details on mission log. So the second alignment category we design refers to what we call mission log, meaning how the company relies on strong governance, legal safeguards and guidelines, as well as trusting sponsors inside governance bodies. And we articulated our ambition around mission log with 3 indicators. So one, how to embed the mission in the company's DNA, then how to define align legal mechanism, and then what is the ability of the company to rely on strong sponsors. And for us, governance choices are really the backbone of sustainability because it settles the common mission of the company and as a decision-making principle. So then moving from the shareholder governance principle toward a mission-led governance is really a big path toward long-term sustainability. And as investors, we can see that misalignment often comes from short-term ownership or issues related to capital distribution and voting rights. And that's why in the alignment framework, we look at how founders and managers value governance and ownership as a long-term business asset. And for sure, for me, it's very something new for startup to take an interest in corporate governance topic. And I think, and it's what we can see here at ChangeNow, is that more and more companies are focusing on their impact, and founders of this company are really engaged to the mission of the company, and they don't want to sell the company in the 5 years. So of course they are engaged on the long term, and they need really long-term governance mechanism. And for example, as investor, we also look at how people who are engaged and connected to the mission, to the business of the company, are able to take part in strategic decisions. And you have a wonderful resource on the platform called Rethinking Ownership in the 21st Century. It's an open source book created by a German organization called the Purpose Network. And you will find very relevant guidelines and good practices from startup on mission log topic. And for example, you will find a case study on the governance of Kickstarter and the governance of other German startups, for example, Ecosia. And for sure, for me, it's really the best report I've read on this topic for a long time. So I hope to be a source of inspiration for many of you. And of course, this idea to preserve the DNA of the company in the long term is really connected to the second indicator of this category, which is aligned legal design. And because at 2050, we do think, and what we can see in discussing with companies is that corporate mission-led success cannot only rely on the founders and team's commitment. And the only way to make it sustainable and robust is via legal documents. So for example, in changing your bylaws and with strong governance choices and long-term safeguards and guidelines. And for us, if a company does not have any long-term safeguards, it may lead to very bad short-term decision in troubled time. So that's why in the framework, we look at how the mission and the key principle are integrated in the governance of the company and, for example, in the bylaws, and what are the structural safeguards to maintain the company's alignment over the long run. And for example, for such company being incorporated as a benefit corporation or as an entreprise à mission in France, is a very good answer to the question. For other company, it will be being owned by employees or by a foundation. But it gives you an example of legal mechanisms that you can put in place. And regarding this aligned legal design category, you can find a lot of tools and templates already uploaded on the platform. And I would like to highlight for startup founders that you can find specific term sheet templates on the Alignment Playbook. And it's often very hard to have access to these confidential documents. And it's really the purpose of a platform like the Alignment Playbook is to open access to this kind of document. And you will find, for example, term sheet templates and guidelines dedicated to impact companies. And for example, you can find the templates used by the Purpose Network I already mentioned. And soon, of course, you will find the term sheet templates used by 2050. But if you want more information on this specific point and on the investment process of 2050, please join the workshop dedicated to this topic in the afternoon. But term sheets are not the only tool that you will find in the platform in this category. And for example, you will also find the bylaws of the Fonds de Pérennité created by 2050. Because as I said, as an aligned investor, 2050 decided to be owned by a perpetual purpose trust. So 100% of the managing company is owned by a Fonds de Pérennité. It's a French legal entity, and it's a kind of a merger between a foundation and a trust. And the idea of 2050 was to include all our ecosystem in our governance and to renounce to the partnership model, which is the many used by many investment companies, but were not really good for us because we wanted to be owned by the ecosystem. And the legal design of 2050 is close to the shareholder foundation model, and you have many resources on this topic in the platform to help you. And I will not spend so much time on it, but the last indicator of the mission log category refers to corporate governance bodies and how the company is able and as reliable sponsors by its size. And what we see is that more and more companies are implementing a dedicated mission committee in their governance, in addition to the board and very connected to the board of managers to find the best opportunities to fulfill their mission. And for example, at 2050, we invested in a company called Sweep, which is creating at this moment this kind of committee. And you will find many resources aided by the Sweep teams member on this topic on the platform. So I don't know if you have any questions at this point. No. So I think we can go further. And so let's jump to the alignment category called ecosystem robustness. So as you may know, the baseline and purpose of 2050 is to craft fertile futures. And for us, fertility comes from ecosystem, meaning that to be able to sustainably scale your business activity, your economic success need to lead to impactful outcomes to your stakeholders community and vice versa. And then assessing these outcomes is a good way to monitor your sustainability of your growth strategy. And that's why the first indicator of this category refers to the ability of the company to reach sustainable scalability via building a aligned ecosystem. Because as an investor and VC investor, we think that to be a champion and to be part of a market shift, because it's really the purpose, a company needs to build trust and sound relationships with its stakeholders. So that's why we pay great attention to the following. How does the company define its corporate ecosystem? What are the key drivers for a good relationship with the company's ecosystem? And something very interesting is, do stakeholders have confidence in the company's ability to lead a fair and impactful market shift? Because if they don't believe in your ability to create this market switch, you will not have a very robust ecosystem. And of course, this indicator is really connected to the second of this ecosystem category, related to impact assessment for mission-led growth. So as we can see here at ChangeNow, and maybe it's something that you have in your mind now, is that impact is very becoming the new buzzword. But beyond marketing statements, we think that finding the business model which will enable first to create sustainable growth, then mission accomplishment, and then contribution to the ecosystem good health and development is key to building a champion. So assessing impact outcome and tracking impact performance with indicators is the best way to identify wealth creation area and developments. And of course, having fair relationships, meaning with no what we call toxic dependencies created, for example, by a top-down positioning, is a crucial asset to overcome challenges, deep mutation, and unexpected economic troubles. And what we can see with the COVID crisis is that, for example, it was the best moment to test the robustness of a business relationship. And that's why, regarding impact assessment, you will find in the framework questions such as, is the company business model empowering ecosystem alignment? And as investor, we look deeply at how the business model is aligned with the mission and all ESG commitments of the company. And for us, it's really important to see at what does the company offer to its stakeholders community and what outcomes are occurring in its ecosystem. And to help you to answer to all these questions and to align your business model, I will highlight for you some of the resources that you can find on the platform. So for example, you have the Community Canvas Guidebook. It's an open source framework to help you to build meaningful communities. And we know that it's a challenge for many companies. You have also the guidelines from the Impact Management Project. It's a British organization publishing a lot on how companies can assess their impact. And you have also the MOOC of the Norwegian School of Economics on how to design your sustainable business model. And related to this resource, what we see as investors is that many companies need to adapt their business model. And for example, moving from selling consumer goods to any individual customers to business model based on sharing, it's not, everyone wants to go on this trend, but it's not easy. So that's why we invite all companies to share their stories and good practices on the Alignment Playbook. And you will already find stories. So for example, you have the story of a company called Shine, and you have a story of the Mozilla, for example, already on the platform, but we hope that many companies will share their good practices too. And the last indicator of this category refers to the deployment of strategic and open resources by companies for and with their ecosystem. And for us, it's clear that companies will be champions if they aim for market shift. And this means taking a leading role in a sector transition. And this transition will be robust and fast if some of these players move in the same direction in the same time. And what we think is that sharing open and collaborative resources is a very good lever to encourage and facilitate such move. And for example, at 2050, we invested in a company called Rethinking, using IoT and connected goods to help people to monitor their personal health. And one of the key drivers of our investment was the commitment of Rethink's teams to build partnership and share data with university, researcher, and health institution on an open source basis. And of course, this Alignment Playbook is for sure also the contribution of 2050 for sharing open resources and methodology with the VC industry to try to lead the shift of the industry for more aligned practices. So maybe we can take one question. So thank you. Yes, so are those assessments qualitative or quantitative? So we try to merge both, but yes, for today, I focus on very qualitative questions. And we assume this positioning at 2050, because what we don't want to set a new norm, and we want to open questions to discussion with companies. So of course, some of the topics we tackle can be monitoring by quantitative and specific metrics. But some of them, for some of them, it's really long-term changement and with no quantitative data. So it's kind of a mix, and our purpose is also to enlarge the contribution to make this framework very useful for many companies. So if you think that we should add quantitative items, we will do it. So maybe we can jump to the planet footprint category. I will go fast on this category because if you are at ChangeNow, you may understand that aligning business strategy with planetary boundaries and life condition is the new license to operate. So I will go directly to say that we have 3 indicators. And the first is related to the environmental resilience strategy of the company. And then we look at its carbon footprint, of course. And then we look at how the company is developing an holistic environmental mindset, because we want that companies look beyond carbon footprint. And because we know that tackling these climate topics is very critical for many companies, I will directly show you the resources you can find on the platform. So for example, you can find the guidelines of SWEEP, so the company in the 2050 portfolio I already mentioned, and they created a tool on how to manage a climate program. And you have also an open course by Magellan called 6 Steps to Kickstart Your Climate Strategy. And you will also find a very useful case study on the carbon footprint of Mozilla. And you will, for more advanced companies, you will find the guidelines of the Net Environmental Contribution Initiative. So very wonderful tools for companies that want to tackle environmental topics at a very global scale. And of course, as Charlie mentioned in the introduction, you will find the climate course created by 2050 with the University Paris Dauphine, and it's under creative license. So maybe I can take one question before going to the last alignment category. Does the fund as a whole has impact goals to reach and KPIs? So yeah, of course, we try at 2050 to be as aligned as possible. We are at the start of this journey. We have done a lot of work on the governance. And so that's why I give you lots of examples of what we did regarding mission launch. And but we have specific KPI especially on the topic I will discuss just after regarding diversity and inclusion, because we want to be an international company and we want to embrace diversity in our talent recruitment. And I think in reading your questions that it will be very useful for everyone if 2050 is uploading these KPIs on the platform too, to help lots of companies and maybe investment companies to see what is the framework and what is the timeline and the KPIs used by 2050. So to conclude this presentation, I would like to spend some time on the last alignment category, which is diversity and inclusion, because diversity and inclusion is one of the best indicators of the company capacity to tackle tomorrow's challenges. And so that's why the first indicator of this category refers to the capacity of the company to integrate both the diversity of background and the diversity of thinking. Because for us, promoting diversity and inclusion in companies is both an ethical and business commitment. And it requires a strong cultural result that is far more engaging than just tackling compliance requirements. And indeed, to face the big challenges of the centuries that we discuss here at ChangeNow, companies need to rely on high-performing teams. And all studies show that performance and diversity are really connected. So for us, mixing diverse mental frameworks for problem solving will lead to disruptive and ambitious companies and innovation. And that's why you will find in the alignment framework the following questions. So do founders and teams wish to challenge the status quo and take a personal responsibility in the change? And how does the company educate its team about diversity and how to assess their cognitive biases? And it's something very useful for companies. And to help you to define this strategy, and what we would like to encourage is that company implementing diversity and inclusion strategies that will boost their business performance. You can find resources on the platform, such as the guidebook published by the Diversity VC, where you will find very practical tools, especially for inclusive job interviews. And Diversity VC is really a very good organization publishing a lot on how to tackle this diversity and inclusion topic. And regarding gender diversity, you have already on the platform many resources from the Galleon projects and sister. But what I would like to highlight is that from a business and from an investor perspective, diversity is not only a human resources issue. So we integrated in the framework an indicator dedicated to the accessibility and diversity of the offer of the company. Because for us, companies can definitely increase their customers in developing inclusive business models. And then for us, being aware of the traditional business biases in addressing a market is a strong asset to design innovative business development and, for example, to help you to target new customers and to create new products. And last but not least, because we think that money empowers and builds self-esteem and a sense of belonging inside a company, we added an indicator related to transparent wealth sharing. And for us, it goes far beyond just equal pay among workers. It's also related to the price transparency and open communication with your stakeholders, for example. So it goes beyond compliance requirements to help companies to create a fertile ecosystem around them and to create together a significant market shift. So you will find the following questions on the frameworks that you will find online, and so you can look at them because we don't have any lots of time remaining. And you will find many useful resources on wealth sharing on the platform, So you have the tools from Diversity VC I already mentioned. And for French companies, you have very practical tools designed by the Gallion project on BSPCE. And so it was a very fast presentation of the playbook. Now we hope that you will spend some time online and discover all the resources that you have online, and feel free to join the community and to add your own resources, tools. And I would like to say a big thank you to all the first contributors of this alignment playbook, because these actors decided to share their resources, their methodologies, their tips on an open source basis, and to help other players to improve their alignment journey. So we encourage all of you to go on the platform and to share the tools and tips and methodology that you think could enrich this collaborative platform. And I will again would like to say a big thank to Julien Cyprin and Jean Ndoulou for the design and the development of the platform. It was done in very, very restricted time. So thank you to them, and we look forward to see you on the platform, and because the idea is really to create a kind of a Wikipedia of alignment. So if you have questions, I will be happy to answer. And we succeeded to finish on time, so thank you for being there. And please feel free to contact us if you need, if you have questions on the alignment playbook. Thank you.